Hello everyone, it's me again, Ling, and today I will tell you about the chapter 13, Texas Longhorns. One evening, Laura and Pa were sitting on the doorstep. The moon shone over the dark prairie. The winds were still and softly Pa played his fiddle. He let a last note quiver far, far away until it dissolved in the moonlight. Everything was so beautiful that Laura wanted it to stay so forever. But Pa said it was time for little girls, so go to bed. Then Laura heard a strange, low, distinct sound. "What's that?" she said. Pa listened. "Cattle, by George," he said. "Must be the cattle herds going north to Fort." After she was undressed, Laura stood in her nightgown at the window. The air was very still, not a grass blade rustled, and far away and faint she could not hear that sound. She could hear that sound. It was almost a rumble and almost a song. "Is that singing, Pa?" she asked. "Is the singing, Pa?" she asked. "Yes," Pa said. "The cowboys are singing. The cattle's asleep. Now hop into bed, you little scalawag." Laura thought of Castle lying on the dark ground in the moonlight, and of cowboys softly singing lullabies. Next morning, when she ran out of the house, two strange men were still sitting on horses by the two strange men were sitting on a house by a stable. They were talking to Pa, but there was a red-brown Indians, but their eyes, they narrow slits between squinting eyelids. They wore flaps of leather over their legs and props, and wide-brimmed hats. Handkerchiefs were knotted around their necks, and pistols were on their hips. They said so long to Pa and I, jumped to the horses, and they galloped away. "Here's a piece of luck," Pa said to Ma. Those men were cowboys. They wanted Pa to help them keep the cattle out of the ravines among the bluffs of the creek bottoms. Pa would not charge them any money, but he told them he would take a piece of beef. "How would you like a good piece of beef?" Pa asked. "Oh, Charles," said Ma, and her eyes shone. Pa tied his biggest handkerchief around his neck. He showed Laura and Mary and how he could pull it over his mouth and nose to keep the dust out. Then he rode Patty-wise along the Indian trail till Laura and Mary couldn't see him away more. All day the hot sun blazed and the hot winds blew, and the sounds of the cattle herds came nearer. It was a faint, mournful sound of cattle blowing at noon. Dust was blowing along the horizon. Ma said that so many cattle trampled the grasses flat and stirred up dust from the prairie. Pa came riding home at sunset, covered with dust. Then was dust in his beard and in his hair, and on the rims of his eyelids, and dust fell off his clothes. He did not bring any beef. because the castle were not across the creek yet. The castle went very slowly, eating grass as they went. They had to eat enough grass to be fat when they came to the cities where people ate them. Pa did not talk much that night, and he didn't play the fiddle. He went to bed soon after supper. The herds were so near now that Laura could hear them plainly. The mournful lowing sounded over the prairie till the night was dark. Then the castle were quieter, and the cowboys began to sing. Their songs were not like lullabies. They were high, lonely, wailing songs, almost like the howling of wolves. Laura lay awake, listening to the lonely songs wandering in the night. Farther away, real wolves howled, sometimes a castle loud, but the cowboy's song went on, rising when everyone else was asleep. Laura stole softly to the window, and she saw 3 fires gleaming like red eyes from the dark edge of the land. Overhead, the sky was big and still and full of moonlight. The lonely song seemed to be crying from the moon. They made Laura's throat ache. All next day, Laura and Mary watched the west. They could hear the faraway bowling of the castle. They could see dust blowing. Sometimes they thinly heard a shrill yell. Suddenly, a dozen long-horned cattle burst out of the prairie not far from the stable, then had come up out of a draw going down to the creek bottoms. Their tails stood up, and their fierce horns tossed, and their feet pounded the ground. A cowboy on a spotted mustang galloped madly to get in front of them. He waved his big hat and yelled sharp, high yells. Hi, yee, 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 hi! The cattle wheeled, clashing their long horns together. With lifted tails they galloped, lumbering away, and behind them the mustang ran and whirled and ran, herding them together. They all went over a rise of ground and down out of sight. Laura ran back and forth, waving her son bonnet and yelling, Hi, yee, 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 till Ma told her to stop. It was not ladylike to yell that. Laura wished she could be a cowboy. Late that afternoon 3 riders came out of the west, driving one lone cow. One of the riders was Pa and Patty. Slowly they came nearer, and Laura saw that with the cow was a little spotted calf. The cow came lunging and plunging. 2 cowboys rode well apart in front of her. 2 ropes around her long horns and were fastened to the cowboy's saddles. When the cow lunged with her horns toward either cowboy, the other cowboy's pony pressed its field and held her, and the cow bawled, and the little calf bleated thinner balls. Ma watched from the window, while Mary and Laura stood against the house and started the cowboy held the cow with their ropes, while Pa tied her to the stable. When they said good-bye to him and rode away, Ma could not believe that Pa actually brought home a cow. But it really was their own cow. The calf was too small to travel, Pa said, and the cow would be too thin to sell. So the cowboys had given them to Pa. They had given him the beef too. A big chunk was tied to his saddle horn. Pa and Ma and Mary and Laura and even baby Carrie laughed for joy. Pa always laughed out loud, and his laugh was like great bells ringing. When Ma was pleased, she smiled a gentle smile that made Laura feel warm all over. But now she was laughing because they had a cow. Give me a bucket, Caroline, said Pa. He was going to milk the cow right away. He took the bucket, he pushed back his head, and he squat by the cow to milk her. And that cow hunched herself and kicked Pat flat on his back. Pat jumped up. His face was blazing red, and his eyes snapped blue sparks. Now, by the great horn spoon, I'll milk her, he said. He got his axe and his sharpened to slabs of oak. He pushed the cow against the stable, and he drove those slabs deep into the ground beside her. The cow bellowed, and the little calf squalled. Pat tied poles firmly to the posts and stuck their ends into the cracks of the stable to make a fence. Now the cow could not move forward or backward or sidewise, but the little calf could nudge its way between its mother and the stable, so the baby calf felt safe and stopped bawling. It was stood on that side of the cow and drank its supper, and Pat put his hand through the fence and milked from the other side. He got a tin cup almost full of milk. We'll try again in the morning, he said. The poor thing's as wild as a deer, but we'll gentle her. We'll gentle her. The dark was coming on. Nighthawks were chasing insects in the dark air. Bullfrogs were croaking in the creek bottoms. A bird called, "Whip, whip, whip, poor Will." Who? Said an owl. Far away the wolves howled, and Jack was growling. The wolves are following the herds, Pat said. Tomorrow I'll build a strong high yard for the cow that wolves can get into. So they all ran into the house with the beef. Pat, Mary and Laura all agreed to give the milk to baby Carrie. They watched her drink it. The tin cup hit her face, but Laura could see the globs of milk go down her throat. Gulp by gulp, she swallowed all that good milk. Then she licked the foam from her lip with her red tongue and laughed. It seemed a long time before the cornbread and the sizzling beef stalks were done, but nothing had ever tasted too good as the tough, juicy beef. And everyone was happy because now there would be milk drink and perhaps even butter for the cornbread. The lowing of the cattle herds was far away again, and the songs of cowboys were almost too faint to be heard. All those cattle were on the other side of the creek bottoms now, in Kansas. Tomorrow they would slowly go farther on their long way northward to Fort Dodge, where the soldiers were. And this is the end of my reading. Thank you for your listening, and goodbye.